Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. Stay tuned for the end of the review when I give my predictions for TakeOver 31 happening this weekend. But before that, like what you like, don't be a dick. Let's begin. NXT opens up with Shotzi Blackheart versus Dakota Kai. This is a follow-up to last week's Battle Royal when Shotzi eliminated Kai in that matchup here. It's a really good opener. I like the action here in this matchup. I think these two tell a really good story together, have good chemistry. There's one part near the end though when Shotzi, they're on the apron and they're fighting in the corner and Shotzi looks to hit some kind of like sliced bread maneuver or something and it looks like she just spikes her head on the apron. It looked really scary from all the angles. There's no safe way. Sometimes you see what looks to be a really ugly bump and you look at an alternate angle like, oh, it didn't look that bad. It wasn't that scary. No, this one was scary from all the angles they showed. Luckily, Shotzi is able to continue on. Raquel Gonzalez tries to interfere, but Rhea Ripley shows up and evens the odds. Shotzi then wins with a roll-up. I thought it was, a great match despite the scary spot at the end. Hopefully Shotzi's okay. We then get a split-screen interview between Santos Escobar and Isaiah Swerve Scott in preparation for their title match at TakeOver on Sunday. They both make very strong cases for their, why each man is going to win the championship on Sunday. Swerve keeps bringing up the fact that, Santos is always rolling with, the other guys from Legado del Fantasma, and he wants to be able to fight him alone because then he can beat him. And Santos says that Swerve keeps making excuses and everything. He will tie up this loose end at TakeOver. He also says, look what I've done with the division since winning the championship. Yes, please tell us, what have you done with the division? We've barely seen you on television since you won the belt. He's talked about how he's built the division in his image. Okay, but he's barely on TV. I feel like they've been able to do a lot with a little in terms of the build for this. Like I said, these guys have they've barely interacted, especially in the same room, in weeks, and we're still building toward this. I'm kind of surprised how long this feud has actually lasted, so at least maybe we'll see a conclusion to this at TakeOver. They play another message from the Mystery Man, the guy with the night vision view and the speak and spell voice. He says, he's coming to take what's his and whatnot, still plugging that he's going to be there at TakeOver. The fact that Robert Roode showed up on Raw this week tells me that he's not going to be the mystery guy. Last week I kind of said, well, it's going to be either Bobby Roode or Bo Dallas because they're the only two former NXT champions who are signed and who aren't doing anything. So that eliminates Bobby from there. So if that's the criteria over like what's going to determine who this person is. Still really no way to be sure because he's wearing a bike helmet. We see like some what looks to be blonde hair, but I think it's kind of an accessory on the jacket. But also, if you think about it, Bo Dallas rode a motorcycle in the Marine 5. Just saying. It's time for the mad rush to build up Kyle O'Reilly as a legitimate contender to Finn Balor's NXT Championship. We start off early in the night with a profile on Kyle where it talks about how it talks through his journey through wrestling and how he's always been pursuing Finn Balor, but Finn's always kind of one step ahead of him, like he goes to a different company or a different country as soon as Kyle gets there, showing him not just wrestling, but also he's riding his bike, he's doing his jiu-jitsu training and whatnot. It builds up Kyle very well, and he talks about how, when he wins the championship, it's going to be the same thing as when Adam Cole had the belt. It will be the second version, or the second wave of the Golden Prophecy. And we'll hear more from Kyle and Finn later in the night. They announced that Tegan Nox has once again tore her ACL into what we saw last week when Candice LeRae jumped her before the Battle Royal. That was kind of the way of riding her out. It's her third major knee injury in a couple of years now. She's already had surgery done on both of her knees since she's been part of NXT, and it's such a devastating setback. You really feel for her because she's been through so much with the rehab and the injuries and whatnot. So hope she gets well soon and can stay healthy once she gets back. We do see an interview backstage with the Garganos, and they talk about how Johnny basically says, we're even Steven now. She broke our TV, we tear her ACL. It's the Gargano way. And so Johnny says it's their destiny to hold their respective championships at TakeOver, and Candice says that it begins tonight in the mixed tag team match. Out comes Cameron Grimes. He's complaining about losing the Gauntlet Eliminator last week, but this week he's got a gauntlet match of his own design. It's the Cameron Grimes Invitational Stepping Stones to the Moon. I might not have gotten that name 100% right, but anyway, out comes this first jobber who he immediately destroys with the cave-in as soon as he gets in the ring. He calls up the next guy, but he's getting beat up by Ridge Holland, who has no time for these foolish games. He gets in the ring as Grimes tries to back off, but Ridge headbutts him and the match begins, and then the match ends soon after that. Ridge is just beating the hell out of Grimes and is ignoring the referee's count in the corner and the ropes, so he gets disqualified. Grimes is able to technically win the gauntlet match, but we're setting up that feud here. Cameron Grimes Ridge Holland. Ridge still looking like a big, strong boy. Grimes pretty entertaining in this segment as well. We get an interview with Austin Theory backstage. He mocks Kyle O'Reilly in the profile piece we saw earlier, saying, you know, he's worked 15 years to finally get an NXT title match. Meanwhile, I'm only 22 years old and I just worked WrestleMania this year. Get that old man O'Reilly out of here. We then see a promo package from Kushida where he talks about how the injuries he suffered have made him impatient and now he wants to take it up a notch and go ballistic. And he says that Velveteen Dream will be a stepping stone for him at TakeOver. We then see Kushida in action against Tony Nese. It's a pretty short match here, pretty one-sided. They're really putting over how aggressive and angry and violent Kushida has gotten lately. He makes Nese tap out with a hoverboard lock. Then after the match, Velveteen Dream shows up on the screen and he says the spotlight is too bright for Kushida and that he, the Dream that is, works best when the spotlight is super bright. Except for those bright lights in the parking lot match. Those are a bit too bright for my liking. The match itself, that speaks for itself. Cameron Grimes is backstage selling his beating from earlier when he bumps into Dexter Lumis, who I don't think we've seen in quite some time at NXT, it feels like. He generally creeps Cameron out and Cameron leaves. So I'm wondering how many different conflicts is Cameron getting himself into now? Like how far is this thing with Ridge Holland going to go? Is Dexter Lumis just there to remind everyone that he's there? Or is that going to lead to something with him and Cameron in the future? Time will tell. We then see Adam Cole make his way to the ring to cut a promo. He puts over the Undisputed Era, calls out Austin Theory for that mess he was talking about Kyle O'Reilly earlier, and then Theory comes out. Adam challenges Austin, that's kind of confusing, to a match, and so then Theory accepts to get in the ring, and they has match. Cole spends a lot of time on top at the beginning of this matchup here, but Theory is still talking trash. I love this part where Adam Cole's got Austin in like a chin lock, and Theory is still talking mess, calling the Undisputed Era a crap or whatever. It's a good match between these two guys. They work really well. Cole ultimately wins with the last shot, and then afterward he shouts into the camera about how awesome Kyle O'Reilly is, how he's going to win the championship. Like, this feels to me like a big telegraph to a betrayal. Am I wrong? Am I being cynical when I see that? It just feels like it's really just kind of like big neon lights. Io Shirai and Damian Priest are interviewed backstage, and Damian says that they're going to take care of business, that they're rock stars, and Shirai cuts her promo in Japanese, but then echoes the rock star sentiment at the end. We then go to our next match here as Xia Li takes on Caden Carter. A couple weeks ago, Xia Li faved Team Caden and Casey and didn't want their sportsmanship and stormed off. So we have this singles match here. I would be surprised if this match goes over 5 minutes. That's kind of the Xia Li special, kind of shorter matches it feels like here. It is a competitive match. Xia is wrestling more angrily than normal, but she loses by roll-up once again. And so then, again, Caden offers a hand, trying to do some sportsmanship. Xia shoves both Caden and Casey and storms off. You know, I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this. This is the most fleshed out character work we've really seen from Xia Li since she's been on television, so we'll see where this goes. The face-to-face between Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor is a pre-taped bit in the ring, and the lights are all dramatic and dark and everything in this one. Shawn Michaels is the moderator for this segment, and it begins with Finn and Kyle both kind of exchanging pleasantries and general statements of respect and everything, but Kyle is very smug and says he is going to, you know, it's inevitable, he's going to beat Finn for the championship, and that he won't need the Undisputed Era to win the belt. Shawn asks if there will be a power struggle between Kyle and Adam should Kyle win, but Kyle denies there's any kind of power struggle between those two guys in the group. Kyle cracks some funny voices, and Finn says there's no time for jokes. Kyle says it's bullshit that he's considered an underdog to begin with, and Finn, with the closing statement here, saying that Kyle has all the makings of an NXT champion. He'd be a great NXT champion if not for the fact that Finn is the one holding the belt. I enjoyed this segment a lot. I like they didn't come to blows. They just had a face-to-face thing. I like the use of how they shot it and the music they played underneath and whatnot. I think it was, very well produced. I think they both get their characters across very well. I have learned a lot more about Kyle O'Reilly just from like these two segments we saw with him tonight than I had in previous, a couple of years NXT with him being part of the group. It's his first real chance to kind of shine as a singles guy, and so I'm all for it. Main event time, champions versus challengers in a mixed tag team match. You have Damian Priest and Io Shirai taking on Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. We got a couple of those kind of requisite like intergender moments where Io, we got a couple moves off on Gargano, on Johnny that is, but Johnny, when he does stuff with Io, it's kind of like just basically it's kind of like light cheating stuff and chicanery here. In the end, Io hits her moonsault on Gargano. Damian goes for the reckoning on Johnny, but Candice takes him to Dick Kick City. Johnny's able to hit one final beat on Priest. He wins the match for he and his wife. They stand tall with the belts over Priest and Shirai, which almost feels like a giveaway they won't be winning, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. But I thought it was a very solid main event. Dynamite begins with a match between Ricky Starks and Darby Allin, a match several weeks in the making here. Ricky comes out with a Darby-styled body bag, and before Darby comes out, we see a video of like him at the skate compound and everything, and his friends talking about Ricky Starks. He pushes Darby, who's in a body bag, down the skate ramp. Good for him. That's just one way to get into the match, I guess. It's a nice blend. The match itself, at least, is a nice blend of technical and high impact and some lucha-inspired stuff here. I love all the different varieties of Darby's arm drags, and a couple of those are on display here. Brian Cage shows up a couple minutes in, but then Will Hobbs evens the odds. They brawl their way to the back. We find out that next week they'll be facing off for Brian Cage's FTW Championship. Should be pretty cool here. Some great action here. Darby kicks out of a mid-air spear by Ricky near the end, and Darby hits the coffin drop to win the match and wins. So this is a fun opener, and I think that the match has been a long time coming. I think the payoff was worth it. Cody makes his way to the ring to cut a promo. He alludes to the fact that, the injuries he sustained from Brodie Lee many weeks ago weren't just physical, but also mental. He kind of goes into a tangent about like the worker handshake and the tradition of the handshake between wrestlers and how it's like mutual trust. He goes on to talk about how he was in Hollywood filming for TV, probably explains why he got the hair dye job, and he had some kind of imposter syndrome while he was there as well. He was kind of all over the place this promo here, but he sounded very convincing. So he's asked, will he accept Brodie Lee's challenge, the dog collar match? And he says, no, walks away, comes back and says, no, as in no regrets, no mercy. Yes, dog collar match will happen. Yay. That was kind of a nice little turnaround there. Bit of a misdirection. Out comes Brodie Lee, and they has fight. And not just they having fight, everyone having fight. First of all, it's a big pull-apart brawl, like a lot of the locker rooms there to try and break it up. And then all of a sudden the women get involved. Brandy shows up and does like a big dive onto the Dark Order, and then Anna Jay shows up and they fight. Nyla Rose gets involved. Other ladies get involved as well. Things are just going absolutely bonkers. I love a good like locker room pull apart brawl in wrestling, and this was just madness because it wasn't just the TNT title stuff, it was everybody getting involved, which is pretty cool to see. It definitely gets me hyped though to see that dog collar match next week. Poor Tony Schiavone backstage with FTR and Tully Blanchard, and FTR talk about how the best friends are just backyarders, but SCU are the real deal. They talk about the Young Bucks as well, saying the Bucks have blown all their recent opportunities at tag title matches, so why should they give them opportunity? As Tony begins to shift gears to full gear, suddenly out of nowhere, double super kick to Tony by the Young Bucks. No, not Tony Schiavone. Leave him out of this, you dastardly Young Bucks. Young Bucks, go home. Then we see SCU backstage cutting a promo saying they're going to become the next tag team champions. Before they make their way through the curtain, we see Shawn Spears in the back, and he wishes them good luck, kind of a sarcastic way. Cool. We then go to that match now for the AEW tag team titles. FTR defending against SCU in the Brush with Greatness 20-minute challenge. It's Fitterscoo or Scruffed. It's an unusual combination here, by the way, of Kaz and Scorpio Sky. Daniels is on the outside here, but within minutes he's ejected because FTR lie about him getting involved. Hangman Page is also doing commentary in this match as well. It's a beautiful match here. Some great, wonderful tag team, like double team maneuvers and sequences in this thing. It's a lot of fun to watch. We get the Warrior Rude finish though, where Tully trips up Scorpio mid suplex from the apron inside and holds his leg down, allowing FTR to win and retain. I was kind of expecting, since it was the first time we'd be doing this 20-minute time limit, that it was going to automatically just go to the time limit. We didn't get that. We got a pretty competitive match. It was a lot of fun to watch. And then after the match, Excalibur announces that at the Full Gear pay-per-view, we'll have the finals of an 8-man tournament to see who will be the next #1 contender. He announces 3 of those names, and one of them is Kenny Omega. And when Adam Page hears this, he looks very kind of surprised and hurt and upset, and he goes to leave. So, because he said on commentary he was still optimistic about being in a tag team with Kenny Omega. This after weeks of Kenny saying the opposite. So I'm really, again, Adam kind of looks hurt and dejected. Where's this gonna go? I'm just wanting to see who's gonna blow up in there first. Up next, Chris Jericho taking on Isaiah Cassidy of Private Party in Cassidy's first singles match in AEW. Match begins as Jericho really underestimates his opponent, but Isaiah gets the drop on him, throws Jericho over the barricade, and he lands right in the laps of Luther and Serpentico, and Luther decks Jericho and sends him back over the railing. Where was the referee during all this? Was there a big distraction going on we just couldn't see on camera? Then Isaiah dives onto the inner circle, and in the process also splits Hager's nose, Jake Hager's nose in the bump. Isaiah's got Jericho reeling for a while here. Once he makes a big comeback, he's got a lot of big moves. He hits the Lion Salt and the Code Breaker on Jericho, but Chris still kicks out. Ultimately, Isaiah goes for a springboard nothing, essentially, but Jericho catches him with the Judas effect and wins the match. Then on their way out of the ring, they jump Luther and Serpentico again, and so they beat them up for a bit. And so we find out, first of all, a good showing by Cassidy here. It was a big test and a big challenge to be wrestling someone as, you know, kind of glorified as Jericho, someone on that kind of elevated level. And I think he handled it really well. Didn't feel like it was a very botchy match to what I was observing and what noticing. So I think Isaiah passed the test. Do I see a lot of legs right now in an Isaiah Cassidy singles run? Not really, but it was a good test. And I want to see kind of Mark Quinn get a shot at somebody, if not Jericho, somebody on that kind of veteran level as well. So we find out that next week that Jericho and Hager will be facing Luther and Serpentico. And it's so cool that that's happening because Jericho and Luther are longtime friends in wrestling. In fact, when Jericho celebrated his 25th anniversary in wrestling, like Lance Storm and Don Callis and Luther were seen in the front row to cheer him on at that show. And now, 5 years later, next week, Jericho's celebrating his 30th anniversary and he's wrestling Luther, and that's just a really cool thing to see. We go to a scene where Kip Sabian and Miro are talking about the details of the bachelor party, and Miro wants the experience to be just an epic one for his friend Kip. He wants some Rumspringa levels of debauchery on that night. So they're playing games in an arcade and talking about it, and then Kip leaves, and Miro is approached by a mystery figure who we don't see the full face of yet. And Miro kind of, you know, explains to him, the stranger, what's going on. We look over, and it's Billy Mitchell, video game world record holder and alleged occasional cheater, is there. And he's like, oh, I know how to show him a good time. Like, I can't wait. I can't wait to see how a bachelor party featuring lots of drinking and Billy Mitchell will make the bachelor party fun. I mean, I'm open to it, but we'll see what happens. We see the best friends and Orange Cassidy being interviewed backstage. Before they can talk, though, in come FTR to mock them some more, saying, you know, you guys are comic relief, and that's okay to be comic relief. You know, you guys are here, we're here, and then Chucky and Trent go both pull back to punch. Cash and Dax both flinch, and so then Orange calls them weenies. We go to that match now as Orange takes on 10 of the Dark Order. It's a good shorter match here. At one point, the Dark Order guys steal Orange's like sunglasses. They steal like the best friend's hug. They even get the snap zoom treatment for it too. And then Orange just dives on all of them, ultimately wins by hitting 10 with the beach break. We go to the back and see MJF and Wardlow come into the Inner Circle locker room bearing gifts. MJF's got some custom Inner Circle jackets for all the members except for Sammy Guevara by mistake. Sammy goes, what the hell are you doing here, MJF? What do you want? And Jericho goes, I got this, Sammy. What the hell are you doing here, MJF? What do you want? We get a reprisal of that, you know, do you want to join the Inner Circle? Do you want me to join the Inner Circle? Kind of back and forth over and over again. And, you know, he gets cut off. Finally, MJF and Wardlow leave. Sammy wants to call him a loser, but Jericho says, no, no, no. Maybe he's not, as he takes a sip of bubbly. I wonder where this is going. It's like the last couple of weeks with the Jericho MJF stuff. It's funny, like, on the surface, but at the same time, it's like they're just doing kind of like a greatest hits right now. They're repeating all the funny stuff they did in previous interactions. They're just kind of like catching you up on it, and hopefully maybe in a week or two we can get some kind of new material in these promos. Britt Baker's back in action here. It's her first match since the Tooth and Nail match with Big Swole All Out, and it's the first match she's had on Dynamite in months at this point. She's finally back, and she's taking on Red Velvet. It's a pretty good match, good showing for Baker here. A lot of great strikes by Britt here in this matchup. She beats Red Velvet with the stomp, and then she puts on the lockjaw after the match with some glove assist by Reba on the outside. And so I'm happy to see Britt Baker back here. I hope that she can stay healthy, and I hope that they can devote as much time to her when she's healthy as they did when she was hurt. In our main event, Eddie Kingston is supposed to choose Jon Moxley's opponent for the world title matchup next, but Kingston shows up with the Lucha Brothers and referee Bryce Remsburg. And so Kingston kind of grills Bryce for a bit, asking, why did you call the match last week when I was in the Bulldog choke and I didn't tap out? And Bryce basically said, it's because you were going unconscious and you were unresponsive. I had to call it because for your safety. So Kingston doesn't like that answer. He's very threatening toward Bryce when suddenly out comes Jon Moxley with a barbed wire bat. He chases off Eddie and his friends in the ring, and then the Butcher shows up from behind him. So the Butcher is the opponent selected by Kingston, and they have a match now for the World Championship. It's a good match here. Butcher working over Moxley's leg quite extensively here. Moxley gets a moment of hope when he throws Butcher into the barricade outside. Even it's a pile driver at one point in the ring, and Butcher still kicks out. Moxley eventually wins again with the Bulldog choke. They're really getting that move over. That feels like kind of a new wrinkle in Moxley's arsenal as of late. So after he wins, he just sits up and stares daggers at Kingston as, you know, the bell rings. After the bell rings, it's cool to see Butcher in this position, I would say. It's not one that I expected, but I think he much like Cassidy did against Jericho, I think Butcher did really hold his own fairly well against Moxley in this main event. And I felt like a shakeup from what we kind of see at the moment. And hopefully we'll get the Jon Moxley Lance Archer match we've been waiting for, that they're advertising for, in 2 weeks. Here's hoping. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or AEW Dynamite. Before I make my choice though, I do want to applaud both shows for having a lot of variety in their talent pool tonight. Not just a lot of the regulars you're used to seeing, but also some newer faces too. Some people, usually don't see on the upper tier of talent, or people, coming back from injury or whatnot. I like the variety here across both shows. That being said, my choice for this week is AEW. I think it really ticked all the boxes for me this week. It wasn't chock full of haha moments, but there was just enough going on, especially with the Inner Circle MJF stuff, that amused me. I liked the big pull-apart brawl after the nice Cody promo, and of course the Moxley Butcher match I think was a pleasant surprise. As far as NXT goes, I really liked how well they built Kyle O'Reilly this week, and again, they had a very short time to do it. I think that in that 1 week's time, or that one episode's time, not even really a week, I think they did a good job building that up. The face-to-face and the profile before that, very well done. With the Cruiserweight title match, it did so little for me because these guys are at NXT so rarely to begin with, I almost forget they're feuding half the time. And now I'm going to give you my picks for this Sunday's NXT TakeOver 31 happening on the network, beginning with the one match on the night that's not for a championship, as Kushida takes on the Velveteen Dream. From the first moment Kushida came back to TV, all they've been talking about how more aggressive he is than he used to be. He's more angry, he's more intense, he's more physical, and they've done a very good job in the last couple of weeks really building that up. I think that momentum will keep going here in this matchup, and I think Kushida will win in decisive fashion because of that newfound aggression. Then in the most recent match that was announced, you got the Cruiserweight Championship as Santos Escobar takes on Isaiah Swerve Scott. Like I've been saying here, I'm not totally digging the build for this one because it has been so inconsistent at times. I kind of forget they're on NXT most of the time. There's a part of me that wants Swerve to win and ideally kind of shake up the Cruiserweight division, but I mean, there's no guarantee that he'll be on TV more than Santos has been. So part of me wants to go with my gut and say Santos retains here. Not sure who's going to challenge him next for it, but I feel that, there's got to be someone out there kind of waiting in the wings. Damian Priest looks to defend the North American Championship against Johnny Gargano in probably his biggest test on a TakeOver event here, going against the former Grand Slam champ and whatnot. The whole story is, will Johnny and Candice walk away as the first husband and wife team with the gold, with their respective championships? I am going to make a bold prediction here and say, yes, they will. They'll both win their championships. I'm going to say right now, Candice LeRae will beat Io Shirai, and Johnny will beat Damian Priest, and they'll have the belts. It almost felt like a big, kind of red flag by them holding the belts up at the end of the show tonight that they won't do it, but it's not always a hard and fast rule that the person who has the belts held up at the end of the go-home show automatically lose at the pay-per-view. It is a predictable pattern, but it's not always a given. So I think they're going to do that and kind of give them this power couple thing and have them with the belts. I mean, I'm loving them as heels right now, and I want to see what they can do with that vibe and that energy as double champions, or as a husband and wife champion couple. NXT title on the line as Finn Balor defends against Kyle O'Reilly at the Undisputed Era. This is Kyle's first match for the NXT title, and one of his few showings in the singles capacity on NXT, especially on such a big stage as this one is, on such a high level. So there's a lot of hype and a lot of hope that this match will be good. I have no doubt about that. I think it could be the match of the night, in fact, between these two. The big question is, there's a couple of big kind of wild cards about this one. Will there be some kind of Adam Cole betrayal, which again, I think they'll be kind of telegraphing at this. Also, where will this mystery man who's been saying he's going to show up at TakeOver, will he play into this, the finish at least? My prediction is Finn Balor will retain. We won't get a blow-up between Kyle and Adam just yet because we're going to see a return of this mystery man. We might get a reveal on the show, who knows, but I think that will be the more immediate threat to Finn, and we'll get that, and in the meantime, we can kind of stretch out this seemingly inevitable breakup between the Undisputed Era. But those are just my picks, folks. Let me know what you think is going to happen at TakeOver and what you thought about NXT and AEW this week in the comment section below, and stay tuned for probably Monday morning when I give you my TakeOver 31 review. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.